business advisor and supply chain expert. And we are back with Andrew Miner, and we are sadly on our last episode talking about Amazon Global. It's been wonderful going down memory lane, talking about the amazing things that we built. But we have come to our last episode where we talk about the legacy and what happened with Amazon Global. Well, I have good news for you. It still lives. You can still find it on the Amazon website. It's called Amazon Global Store. And you can order from 4 different websites. You can do Germany, UK, US, and Japan. I forgot that we launched in Japan, and that huge effort, because way back then, remember, we had to do kanji and double bite and
It's all UTF-8 now. It's easy.
well, back then it was a whole other effort. So Amazon Global lives on today. I don't know how much money Amazon Global makes today. I know when we were working on it, when I
Funny
left
enough, they didn't
Amazon.
want to share those numbers with us for the
I
podcast.
know, I did ask. They were like, we don't know." But it was a multi-billion-dollar business when I left Amazon. We were exporting 80% of the Amazon.com catalog had been made eligible for export, which is pretty freaking fantastic
I think we launched in a September of 2006, and I think it was like $5 million. But
by the end of the year. So in 5 months, basically. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, the scale is shocking. And the fact that we went from 0 to multi-billions and billions and billions and billions and worldwide in 200 countries. We're exporting to over 200 countries. Kindle was the Amazon Global thing was a big part of the Kindle push and getting the Kindle out there and making that worldwide tool. So it still lives on today. People still work on it. Oddly enough, I was actually checking it out, and some of the Japan page still has the banner that we designed almost 20 years ago, which kind of cracks me up.
I still
Uh,
have the fleece vest that we got when the thing finally shipped
I
with
did.
the logo we designed on it.
The logo we
Mhm.
designed, so we branded the whole thing. We branded Amazon Global. We did the vesties, and at the time, I didn't know that was a big no-no at Amazon. Like to do, yeah, I didn't know that was not okay. I thought that was cool.
I'd never heard
No,
that was not okay. That's interesting.
yeah, that was kind of we were early with that. It took off after that. Other people started doing it, but the executives wouldn't wear them because they felt like they were showing favoritism. Man, whatever.
I mean, I was on the team. I built the damn thing. I get to wear the vest.
I wore the vest. I had the vest, but like Wilkie wouldn't wear the vest because he
That's
felt
fine.
like it should.
That's fine.
Whatever. Wow, come on, man. I worked my ass off on that. So anyway, so that's how it lives on today. And as Andrew pointed out, we were Amazon has the patent on this, and we were the first to make this happen. There are a lot of copycats out there. A lot of companies are doing duty and tax calculation and trying to make this work. But I don't know if anybody's done it at the scale that Amazon's done it. And so while Andrew and I talk about a lot about what we built in our early days with Amazon Global and getting that launched, a lot of people carry this on after us. So Marcella and Samana continued to build the Amazon Global business when I went on to run the import department and product compliance and hazmat and all the other stuff I went to go build for
Peggy and
Amazon.
Venkat took it over when I left.
Yep. And then when you left, who took over for you?
Peggy and Venkat.
Yeah. Yep.
Venkat was the team lead, I think, that picked it up, and Peggy was came in as an intern fresh out of school, and this was like
Yes.
her very first thing ever at Amazon.
Yeah.
And she was instrumental in building the whole thing, wrote
She
a
was
lot of the
amazing.
code, did
Yeah.
a lot of the on-call, and she's gone on. I think she's even still with Amazon. She's
I think
now
she's still with
an
Amazon.
important
She's in
leader in
Japan.
Amazon Japan.
Yeah, she's in Japan, an important leader there. Yeah, she did really well. And I do have that funny little story I like to tell. Eventually we did have to do some marketing for Amazon Global, and I figured out through I think it was called Orchestra was the team. I can't remember their name. The team that managed ads at the time, Amazon really hadn't monetized ads monetized ads at all, really. But I figured out how to put an ad on R1, which is right one, ad placement on the gateway
You
page.
got in so much trouble.
I did. No, a little. Okay, all right. There was some trouble. Jeff Bezos found out, and I got a little trouble. But,
If you
but
catch
it kind
Jeff's attention, you are definitely in trouble.
I only got in trouble because it went to a landing page. That's the only reason. He wanted things to go specifically to a product page. I get it, but that's the only reason. And I got in a little bit of trouble because technically it cost $1 million a day. But to me, that was just monopoly funny money because it was all within the company, and I don't really think it counted. So, but the funny, great story about Peggy
Which
was
is
that in order to
exactly
put,
how we did things back then.
I remember going to Garish and being like, "Look, I want to put an ad and da da da," and
Grace, I
he's
need
like,
10
"Well,
million bucks. Can you write a
yeah."
check,
He's like,
please?
I'm like, "It costs $1 million a day." He's like, "We don't have that kind of money." I'm like, "I don't think it really matters. It's just monopoly money. Like they're not going to come get it." He's like, "All right, well, let's do it and see what happens." So we did. And eventually we had to turn it down. But the story about it was that, obviously no one was helping us as you and I talk about. It was just kind of you and me and Peggy. At this time, I think Peggy had come along and we were out there just figuring it out. So I got a hold of the teams that ran the ads and the placements on Gateway. They told me how to do it. They taught me what to do. And I needed to write some code. I needed HTML code. And I remember coming to you and saying, "Hey, I need to write this little ad." And you were like, no, you need to go talk to Peggy. And Peggy was so offended that I asked her to write HTML code. Both of you were like, "What? You can just copy paste that shit. Let me show you how to do it." Like, that's what she
I've got
did.
real work to do, Kim. Get out of my office.
Like, what? We don't, what? This is like kindergarten stuff. And like, literally, she was like, "I'll just show you how to copy paste it. Okay. Just pick out one that you like and then you just copy paste." And it took me a couple of hours because I would to finally get it looking right, but I finally got it right. But that was one of the best stories ever is that you guys were like, "We don't do HTML." But yeah, so it lives on today. We did have an ad on the Gateway page. And so from a technology perspective, what did you see? What do you see that lives on today, Andrew?
Um, Putting things in context, right?
Mhm.
Amazon started off on one machine in Jeff's closet, and a little bell rang every time somebody placed an order, right? That was the beginnings. And
Yeah.
it was one application. Like
Mhm.
you compiled it down to one thing and you just ran it on the command line. That was it. Well, by the time Amazon scaled to where we were in 2005, 2006, the time frame, uh, the app was, I mean, it's a gigabyte and some application. It took more than 24 hours to compile. So like daily builds were like no longer possible. Um, so the company was in the process of taking this huge app and breaking it into smaller and smaller pieces, right? So there's a piece that ran the website and there's a piece that ran the fulfillment center.
Yep.
And then the website piece broke into a piece that did the item catalog, a piece that did the ordering, and a piece that did the shipping. And then farther and farther down into little bitty pieces. So that was in progress. It was a thing
Mhm.
that was happening, and there's a dev support team that managed all the interactions and whatnot. I think we are among the first handful of services that wasn't merely breaking something off, the big pieces. We were
Yeah.
a brand new service for a brand new functionality. And I think we're in the first like dozen or so services that were built from scratch to be a service.
Yeah. To be a microservice or a SaaS service. Yep. Yeah.
And we ran into things that the other teams didn't necessarily because we were starting from scratch. So there was some contributions to the understanding of how do microservices work
Yeah.
because of the stuff we ran into.
Yeah. So
Um,
one of the things that Andrew and I ran into is when we started this and all of this was being built was that we were a very small percentage of the actual orders, like
yeah,
less than 1%. Now we did get to be 10% at one point. We were 10% of orders. But we were a very small percentage of orders.
yeah.
And so every time we're talking on the order pipeline and they're like, we're like a gnat to them. They're just like, "What do you want? And why are you bothering us? And just get the
This
hell
isn't
out of our
even worth
faces."
the risk of a deployment.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's what it was, yeah, and so we had to do a lot of convincing, and you had to do a lot of convincing, and you actually ended up building some technology
Yeah.
sort of specific.
So for anybody who's technical, the way these services usually work is there's nothing on the calling side. That's just their code. They call you and that's it. You're done. And all
Mhm.
of your code lives on the other side of the network.
Yep.
Well, in this case, they didn't want to call us for every single thing, only to be told, hey, we've got nothing for you this time. Because they
And
had
we didn't really want that either.
100,000 orders per hour that they were dealing with. And we didn't want that kind of traffic because we'd have to scale up our service to a
Yeah,
huge
because we
level
would have been a
to just say
T1
no
then.
all the time.
Yeah, and
And
then
we'd be a
and we would
T1
have been a
service,
T1.
which means any outage of any severity means instantly wake everybody up, get it's the whole big fuss.
Yeah, it was like an hour. You had to have an answer in like an hour for a T1. And you and I both were like, "Mm-mm,
Want that?
we don't want that.
So we wound up,
We're not getting paid for that."
so we wound up writing some code that actually lived inside of the ordering team's service,
Hmm.
which made some very preliminary discovery kind of decisions about this can't possibly be something I need to call for duties and
Right.
taxes.
Yeah. It's not
And,
leaving the country. We don't need to do anything.
and that way, we owned code that lived in our client, which is very weird in this client
Yeah.
server model. But it was totally necessary to solve the scaling problem because they didn't want to own that code. They didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want the configuration. They didn't want any of it.
No.
Um, but
And
they
the other
were
thing
worried
is that
about,
it was dynamic. I think that's the
yeah,
other thing we need to is that HCSs change all the time. Duty rates change. If you read the news, please. Duty rates change all the time. And so it was the big part is that this wasn't about hard coding something that would never
no.
change. This would change
Well,
potentially
it would,
multiple times a year.
when the ordering system would launch up, it would start with some basic configuration that would allow it to make the most rudimentary preliminary sorts of decisions.
Yeah.
But to make more nuanced decisions, basically it would call our service too much for
Yeah.
too many things with the built-in hard-coded configuration data.
Yep.
Then, as soon as it starts up, it would make an API call to our service and say, give me the latest information. And then it would get a bundle of data, which allows it to make a more sophisticated decision so that it could filter out a bunch more things that it didn't have to call us for.
Yep.
And that was the real stuff. But now it's getting that data from our service, which was honestly in the beginning, like 95% of requests to our service were this check-in call
Yeah.
just to load the configuration data.
Yeah.
And then for those very few cases where it's like, oh, actually, this is an order. Oh, goody, we get to do something.
We had
And
to
then
do
it will,
something.
and then it would make a real call to our service to get real data,
Yeah.
and that would get worked into the ordering pipeline. So
Yeah.
this notion of we're delivering the client piece as well as the server part was
Yeah.
novel and something that the team at Amazon had not seen before
Yeah.
because they all had very clean boundaries and they were all breaking services apart. And even the other services that were brand new from scratch services kind of fit the usual model of like the scale was similar on both sides of the equation. So there wasn't this very extreme disparity of calls that they had to contend with.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, we had to insert into the order pipeline and actually onto the order checkout
Yeah.
were these duties and taxes, right? And they needed to be communicated in a clear way so that people understood what they were. And I think we ended up having to actually break down duty and tax separate.
Yeah. And this became
Yeah.
a problem because as these services were breaking apart, the first instinct of the people doing it at the time, and remember, microservices were not a thing. This did not
Now
exist in
this
the
was
world
all
at the
new.
time. This is 2004, 2003, 2000 even, I think was when they started all this.
Yeah.
The company is founded in 1997. So we went from server in Jeff's closet 1997 to
10 years
2005.
later. Yeah.
And the team said, okay, well, we're going to do the thing that you usually do. We're going to define an API that has all of the fields explicitly listed one by one, exactly their data types, in this very well-defined, structured approach so that everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to send and exactly what they're going to get. And there's only one version at a time, and we're going to roll over. It's still a pretty standard way of running a lot of these things.
Yeah.
But this is one of several projects that came down the list that meant we needed to be a little more flexible
A
because
lot flexible.
the way that things were written as we were doing this project, we needed to talk to something like a dozen different teams to say, could you add these two fields, please? And they all had to have the field before we could turn the thing on because
Hmm.
otherwise the data would get partway through the
Flushed.
pipeline and then it would just get dropped before getting to the next service.
Yeah.
And we needed it to make the full loop around to
All
get
the
into the
way.
transportation database so that when the shipping manifest came back from the carrier, we could do the refunds and stuff we talked about before.
Yeah. And I
So,
remember that too. Like we got ordering on board and then we had to go to transportation.
right. And
Yeah.
then we had to go to shipping, and then we had to go to picking, and then we had to go to
Yeah, so
on
we had
all
to
the way
keep
through.
going. Yeah.
So this was part of the impetus within Amazon that I think had them shift to a more document-based model, which has now become a very common pattern in
Yeah.
the industry. That when you have something like this, where it's a handoff of data, where you mostly don't care about what it is, but you're passing through a bunch of things that might belong to somebody else,
Yeah.
this is now a common pattern where you have a container of stuff, which has a label on it that says, this is this kind of stuff, version number 17, whatever. And then each service that takes the packet hands it off exactly as it was. Maybe
Yep.
they add their own little thing to it. And then
Yes.
it goes on mostly unopened and uninspected.
Yes.
And that way, if we were doing this today, we would have simply said version 20 and we add our thing. And it would have just all gone through and everybody would have ignored our new stuff and wouldn't have had to do any work at all.
Yeah.
And I
So that was
believe that's how they're still doing it today, as far as I know.
I have no idea. I barely understood it when we were working on it back then. I remember we had to use a lot of primary colors on a whiteboard.
Yep.
And it was the document thing that finally got me through it. Like I think somebody finally wrote a document and we're like, okay, so the data goes on it and then it passes and then we add a little bit more to the document. Um, but that was finally what helped me understand it. The other piece from a technology perspective was that we ended up building a classification engine. You didn't get to be a part of that. You left before that
No,
happened.
I got
You would have done a
stolen
brilliant
away by
job,
a
though.
startup at that point.
You were on your startup days then, and Amazon Global was starting to look slightly like maintenance at that point. I
It
won't lie
was.
about it.
It was.
We had solved a lot of the big issues at that point, and I was moving on. I mean, I still owned the program, but I was running imports and exports and product compliance and hazmat and all these other things. So Samana and Marcelo were running a lot of that because you and I are similarly wired, and it reminded me when you and I got back on an episode, like we were kind of twins, clones.
Mhm.
Yeah, I forgot about it. Yeah,
Yep.
our brains are connected. I don't know why. It's always been that way. But yeah, so so Amazon Global, we were talking about the legacy, we talked about the technical legacy. We went on to build a classification engine. I can't remember how many we were pumping through that, but I know it had to scale to 1 million in 24 hours because if we had to do a refresh, that's potentially what we were looking at.
Hmm.
And the program went on to ship to over 200 countries.
How many countries are there?
It
That's
was
pretty much all of them, right?
it's pretty much all of them. There are some sanctioned countries that you can't send them to. And then there was always that big debate about what was a country and wasn't a country because there's some countries that, are territories.
Yeah.
And there was always something about that.
Contentious about whether they're considered independent or not. And we won't name names, but we all know who we're talking about.
There's a few of them. And you would not think that they would get so upset about that, but they do. Yeah, you got to accommodate that kind of thing. And so, as we mentioned, other companies will come along and build similar technology and not be able to scale probably as well as Amazon has. And then Amazon Global eventually got expanded to merchants so that
Mhm.
merchants could also export their products. And then and some other people at Amazon took a lot of what you and I built, Andrew, and took it to FBA and built the Amazon global selling and global FBA programs with a lot of the same philosophies and technology that you and I developed 4 or 5 years before that.
Mhm.
So it lives on. So that is the legacy of Amazon Global. Anything else you want to leave us with, Andrew?
I think it's still one of the things that like is the broadest used piece of software that I've ever. I doubt any line of code I actually wrote is still in operation anywhere in that.
You might be
But
surprised.
yeah,
My
maybe
Japan banner is still up there. So
that's possible. But having started it, it's one of the things that like has gotten the most traction of anything that I've built. So
it's
it's definitely something I look back on fondly.
Yeah, it's worldwide. And I know I don't know how you feel. I know for me, when I was building it, it didn't feel worldwide. It felt small.
Hmm.
And it wasn't probably until 20 years later that I could actually look at it and be like, damn,
Yep.
that
Well,
was
people
worldwide.
ask me like, should I work in a big company? Should I work in a startup? Right. And these days, one of my jobs is teaching people who are getting into software.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty common question. Like, where should I aim? That's the advantage of working for a company like Amazon. Everything you do is going to be huge. It's going to be in front of millions of people on day one.
Hmm.
It's going to be potentially world changing.
Yeah. if you're working on the right projects.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no guarantees, of course, but it's at least possible.
It's at least possible. I
On
would
the
say
other
it's probably
hand,
one of
for
the last places.
99% of startups anybody ever works at, nobody's even
Yeah.
heard of them ever, and we'll never hear of them ever. Because that's the life of a startup. Most of them don't work. And that's fine. That's
80%,
how it's supposed to go. It's totally expected. Nothing wrong
that's
with
how
that.
they do
But
it.
it
That's
is
the
how the
culling
ecosystem
process.
works.
Yep. But 80% of startups fail in the first 2 years.
Hmm.
That's a cold fact. And I have a lot of theories about why that is, and I share them all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, but very few of them very make it. So yeah, if you have an opportunity, it's a wonderful one.
Yep.
Great. Andrew, it was wonderful catching up with you and reliving these days of building Amazon Global.
Thank you.
And I forgot all the heartache and stomach acid I had, but it's coming back. The ulcers have reemerged just talking about all the stuff that we did. But
And
thank you very
now
much
we're
for
on
your
to new
time.
things.
Out not to do things. But we didn't know. Nobody had gone before. Like, we were trailblazing. We didn't
Hmm.
know. We literally, we're just figuring it out on a shipment by shipment basis sometimes.
Day by day.
Yeah, day by day it was. We had many conversations, and you can't ship that. Like, okay, thanks for telling us. We won't do it again. Thank you very much for your time, Andrew. And if anybody is interested in some photography, that is what Andrew is doing now, as well as teaching.
Mhm.
So where can people connect with you if they want to?
I have a website, Authmo, authmo.co. That's
Hmm.
where to find me for photography stuff.
Excellent.
And I'm teaching for formation.dev. So if you
Excellent.
are looking to get into the software world, maybe you've gone to a coding boot camp and you're looking to actually get through some algos and data structure algorithms and you're struggling with that, definitely look them up. They're a really nice place to work and they do really, really well for their fellows.
Awesome. That's fabulous. And you'll be learning from one of the best. All right. That's us. We will talk to y'all soon. Thank you.